Most Christians want to read the Bible more. It's just hard to fit one more to-do into an already overcrowded calendar. In this week's talk, we'll look at God's surprisingly scientific approach to help people engage with the Bible.
Thank God that you didn't learn to tie your shoes in the AI age. Do you imagine if you went to mom when you were 4 and you're like, "Mommy, can you help me learn how to tie your shoes?" And she says, "Hang on a minute, honey. Hey, Google, give me instructions on how to tie shoes." And then Google gave something like this. Put the shoe on your foot. Make sure your heel is pushed fully into the heel cup of the shoe. Check that the tongue is centered. Look at the 2 lace ends. One lace comes from the left side. One lace comes from the right side. Hold one lace in each hand. Pinch each lace near its end using your thumb and index finger. Move the right lace across the middle of the shoe. Place it over the left lace. The laces should form an X. Hold the crossing point with your finger so that it does not slide. Take the lace that is now in the top of the X. Move it underneath the other lace. Push it through the opening below the cross laces. Pull the lace completely through. Grab both laces. Ends again. Pull outward. Here you go, honey. Do it. You're like, ooh. What? What? Okay, that is a technically accurate description of how to tie a shoe. That does not help a 4-year-old at all. Thankfully, you learned back in the good old days when we just demonstrated. She said, "Oh, well, here, bring your shoe, see, and here's what you do. You take this, and you go kind of like that. See that? And then you pull there. There you go. You're ready. Now you practice." Okay? Totally different experience learning how to tie shoes. Sometimes in life, you just need some for examples. Sometimes you just need to watch the YouTube video to see where the bolt is under the hood so that, okay, there you go. You could describe it for 10 minutes, but if somebody says, "Right there, see right there, you move that over and then the bolt right there," okay? Sometimes that's just what you need. Let's be honest. Sometimes Christianity feels more like this than this, okay? Sometimes podcast guys feels more like the complicated instructions than the, "Here, let me show you how to tie your shoe." Sometimes, as much as we try for it not to be, sometimes being in church is like, wow, I learned some great stuff. What on earth am I supposed to do with that? Now, I have more knowledge. Sometimes you see a video on Facebook because somebody shares it with you, or sometimes you're reading a passage in the Bible and you're like, okay, I know a little bit more history, but what am I supposed to actually do with that? And sometimes it feels like the values of Christianity are just kind of floating out in the clouds somewhere. And if your goal as a Christian is just to ascribe to a lofty theological idea, then that's good. The more knowledge you cram in your brain, you're great. But last week we said that Christianity doesn't actually help you unless you do it. It doesn't actually benefit you unless Jesus said, "The blessing is for those who hear my words and do them." And it's hard to and do them when all of the values and the ideas are still floating out here somewhere. I need some for examples in life. I need some for examples for my kids. I need some for examples for me. If I want to live a healthy Christian life, then all of my life should be kind of one never-ending string of object lessons where I say, "Oh, this reminds me of what Jesus said about how to treat my neighbor. This reminds me of what happened when Saul heard the instructions and didn't follow them the right way. This reminds me of this, and this reminds me of this." You say, "Well, that sounds great. If you're a pastor, that probably happens to you all the time." Pastor Chris, for the rest of us, it's not so easy. But it can be easy because taking the truths out of the clouds and putting them into practice is not just an ideal, that's God's expectation. All through the Bible, that's presented as the norm. That's presented as what we're supposed to do. That's what Jesus anticipated all of us would do. And I want to talk to you today about how you can do that without needing me to put the application together for you. How you can do that without needing a theological degree. How you can do that and it actually works with your regular schedule. It's not actually nearly as difficult as it sounds. And the answer to how can I take Christianity out of the clouds and make it practical, the answer is going to be the most Sunday school answer Some of you guys remember Sunday school. Way back in the day, you came an hour earlier to church, so you had like church 1 and then donut break and then church 2. Okay, I don't know why we crammed it all into one day, but that's how we did it, okay? It's going to sound like the most obvious answer that you've ever heard, but it is the answer. I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it today. Here's the what to do, and then we'll get into how. Okay, write this down in your notes if you're filling in the blanks in person, in paper, or maybe you're following on the YouVersion Bible app, or if you're watching online, you can get the notes. Just look in the description on the show that you're on. You can get them right there. Okay, write this down. If God's word is part of your daily life, his values will be too. If his word is part of your daily life. By his word, okay, in case some of you guys are not hip to the church lingo, okay, that's a church lingo kind of term, word, which means like all of them, okay? If God's teachings, if God's truths from the Bible are part of your daily life, then the values inside them will be part of your daily life. They will naturally just kind of soak into everything, sort of like the carpet that I foolishly put in the storage room of my basement. I found that the storm from the other night exposed a very mild leak in the storage room in my basement, and my carpet found every drop of that and just went and smelled horrible. Okay? Pro tip, don't put carpet in the storage room of your basement. Okay. It'll soak in. It'll soak in. Here's what God said in the Old Testament, and it was still an expectation in the New Testament. God gave the Bible, the commands, to Moses, and Moses comes down from the mountain, and he gives them to the nation of Israel. Here are the things that God said. Here's how you're supposed to live. And he says this as a teaching moment near the end of his life when he's like, all right, I'm not going to be around to teach you guys in person. You're going to have to learn this for yourself. Moses says this, inspired by the Holy Spirit. Deuteronomy 6, chapter 6, verse 1. He said, these are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you. And here's kind of like what Jesus said. If, everybody say if. Okay, this is the you. It's not for everybody. He says, if you obey his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. There's good stuff that comes. If you obey it, it will benefit you. He said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. Somebody came to Jesus in the New Testament and said, Jesus, what's the most important command? There are a whole bunch of rules in the Old Testament. And Jesus said, well, the most important one is this. He said, love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. You do that, you got everything. Okay? So that's the important part, okay? He says, be fully immersed, have all of yourself involved in this. And then he goes on, he says, and you must commit yourself wholeheartedly to these commands I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands, wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. He says, guys, you got to get fully, deeply immersed in this thing called the Bible. Then you will be able to follow the stuff because you'll know it well. Then you won't have those where you're like, oh man, I should have thought about that. I totally messed that up a couple of weeks ago. Okay, you'll have it in the moment when you're immersed. Have any of you guys ever had a friend who's been, oh, you got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. And you're like, okay, fine. You fire it up on Netflix and you watch it and you're like, oh, it's getting kind of late, but we could probably watch one more, right? And then you watch one more, and then you watch one more, and then it's 4:30 a.m., and you got to get up in the morning, and you go through like 7 seasons of the entire show in like a week and a half. Anybody ever had that kind of like, I'm just watching as much as I can? Or some of you guys, any gamers ever, when the release date for your favorite game is announced, you're like, I'm taking off that weekend? I'm taking off of work. Okay, yeah, there are a few of you out there, right? I'm not doing anything else. I'm playing. When I was a kid, my friend Scott, it's going to age me a little bit, on the Nintendo 64, my friends got WCW versus NWO, wrestling game. And my two teenage friends and my teenage brother and I, we played it so much that I would go to Walmart and I would just immediately like envision myself clotheslining somebody who's walking by because I'm just wrestling all the time. Okay, when you're that level of immersed in something, examples just come to your mind regularly, right? Because you're soaking in it. It's just like you press down and it all squishes out. You're immersed. God said, you want to do this well? You need to be immersed in the Bible. Now, sounds great. I have never met a Christian, and maybe you're here today, and we'll talk later, okay? I've never met a Christian who says, Chris, I think the Bible is dumb and nobody should pay attention to that. It's pointless. What's the point of learning anything? I've never met anybody. Every Christian that I know believes that the Bible is God's truth, and I want to know it, and I want to read it, and I want to understand it. I've never met anybody that says, I don't care. I've met a bunch of people that say, Chris, I intend to do it. I really do. And I'll read for like a couple of days, and then I get busy and I forget. And then I come to church, I'm like, man, I feel so guilty. I can't even remember the last time that I opened up the book. Sounds good. It's just not easy. Okay? Recent study from 2025 found that Christians, Pentecostals, like Assemblies of God folks like us, and Baptists and Methodists, okay, they surveyed people and said, how often do you actually read the Bible outside of church? Okay, on your own when you're not in church. You know what they found? 27% of folks like us have not opened the Bible outside of church in the last year. Yikes. It's kind of hard to be immersed when you have to you have to blow the dust off. When you can't open the app because it needs 6 updates because it's been a while since you opened it. Okay? It's a challenge. Here's the good news. I believe that in that passage, God gives us not only the what, but also a few genius level insights on the how. And today, you get to be the beneficiaries of 2 of my largest nerddoms combining. Do we have that image, Danny? Can you put that up on the screens? Yes. Today is Pastor Chris's Bible nerd and Pastor Chris's psych nerd coming together. If we had a way to stitch in the Dallas Cowboys and Cheez-Its, it would be, we'd just levitate right to heaven. We'd just already be there. Okay? It's fun for me. Here's what's cool. Thousands of years before we studied these things, God said, do it this way and it'll go better. And it turns out it does go better. I want to show you 3 of those things. Here's what's cool. These are things that you could actually put into practice today, and they would start benefiting your life immediately. I love these kind of talks. Let me give you 3 things that God shows us in this passage that will help you to build a healthy rhythm of immersion in the Bible, and it will not require you to take a weekend off of work to do it. You can still game and watch your Netflix shows, okay? First thing is this, write this down. Repetition is your friend. You need to build daily habits. Repetition is such a powerful thing when it comes to learning, and God, not by accident, says, when you work on this stuff, guys, you need to repeat it again and again. He says, do it when you're getting up in the morning. Do it when you're going to bed at night. Make it a daily, regular, recurring kind of thing. Let me show you some science that supports, as if we need science to support it, but I just love that when we look at it, it's technically true. Okay? 2019 study on human learning found this, quote, our ability to remember a piece of information depends critically on the number of times we have reviewed it. The distribution of the reviews and the time elapsed since the last review. They said it turns out repeating stuff and practicing it a lot actually does improve. That's the single biggest factor in you memorizing stuff. It's why when you were in grade school, your teacher made you practice again and again. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is? Yeah. Okay? You know that really well because your teacher drilled you again and again and again. And some of you guys were really bright and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the biggest waste of time. I already know that 4 times 6 is 24. But there's a huge value in repetition. Listen to this, okay? In their book, Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning, the authors studied how to get people to retain things. In a digital age where we're not forced to memorize as much, you still need to remember some things. How do we do that well? They studied it and they found that repeatedly stimulating neural pathways increases their bandwidth, okay? So physical, structural change in your brain by rehearsing something again and again. It actually gets stronger. Your brain is not a muscle, but if you do bicep curls every 3 days, your bicep will strengthen. Okay? Some of you guys are really good at that. Okay? If you repeatedly rehearse the same thing in your mind, your brain says, oh, we need that pathway. You actually expand the electrical signal capability of that thought process the more you rehearse it. They said, quote, that is essential for hanging on to the knowledge that you want to gain. And so when you were practicing your multiplication tables, when you were having to write out these words and spell them again and again and again, and you're like, I'm getting finger cramps. How many times do I need to spell friend? I know, fry, and I got it, okay? But your teacher was putting that stuff in, and so now, some of you guys, it's been a while since you studied multiplication, and you still know 5 times 5. It's 25, okay? There's so much power when you need to immerse in the Bible. Jesus said the benefits are only for the guys who actually do it. Okay? And God said, if you want to actually do it and it to make sense in your life, you better be fully immersed. Okay? That full immersion does not require huge amounts of time. What is much, much, much more important is that you do it faithfully, consistently, over time. Write this down in your notes. 5 minutes a day is far more effective than an hour a week. From a scientific perspective, little chunks in a consistent rhythm with a little space in between will help you internalize those things way better than saying, oh my goodness, I need to catch up on Bible reading. I'm going to read the whole book of Acts in one sitting. Okay? Not wrong. But it's not the best way to learn. God said you need to repeat these things again and again. Do it in the morning. Do it in the evening. Let me give you just Pastor Chris's personal recommendation. If you really want to internalize the Bible and learn it well, here's how I've started studying. Okay? Take one book from the Bible at a time and and you could do more, some of you guys, but take one book and just read one chapter a day. I don't think there's any chapter in the Bible that takes even 5 minutes to read. They're not long chapters. Do one book, one chapter a day. And here's what I'll do. One chapter a day till I get to the end of the book. And then I'll change to a different translation on the Bible app or grab a different paper Bible. And I'll go back and I'll do it again. One chapter a day. And if you really want to crank it up a notch, sometimes if it's a short one, I'll go back a third time and I'll listen to it one chapter a day. Because sometimes when I'm listening, I hear things that stand out differently because the audio Bible is free in a lot of different translations on the Bible app or on YouTube. Okay. Do you know what happens? Well, Pastor Chris, it'll take you 5 years to get through the Bible. Yeah, maybe. But I learn what I'm studying really well. And about the time that I say, yeah, I already know this. Good. That's what I'm looking for because I need those things to spring to mind when real life situations need God's wisdom. I need that wisdom to be on speed dial. Okay, repetition and daily habits are big. Okay, so that's one. Here's another one. Write this down. Use visual cues as memory triggers. Use visual cues to remind you of stuff that you know is just rattling around in the back there. You ever have this frustrating thing where somebody asks you, now who was the girl that was on that show that we watched the whole 7 seasons in a week and a half? You're like, oh my goodness, the name's right on the tip of my tongue. You ever have that? I know it's in here. I cannot seem to get it to come to the front of my mind, but I know it's in there. There's so much more Bible knowledge than you can access right in the moment. One of the things that helps is to create visual triggers to help you to remember what you know or to help you to remember to read. Because all learning is contextual. Everything you learn, your mind is always collecting other data. Sometimes, some of you guys, when you're studying for that test and it comes to that question, some of you guys are like, I remember where it was on the page when I read that thing about how the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I remember that in the textbook because it was on somewhere right down here, okay? It's how your mind works. It's not an accident then that God says, take these truths and tie them to your hands and write them on your foreheads and put them on your doorposts and put them on your gates. He said, fill your life with things that remind you of my truth and remind you to read, to study. A lot of those guys couldn't read. They just had to recite it from memory. Another study in 2019 found this, that paired environmental cues, okay, visual cues, can help you to remember stuff without you even consciously thinking of it at all. If you build visual reminders around you, it will trigger the things that you want to do, and you don't even have to be thinking about it. You're like, oh, that's right. It shifts all of the weight from your conscious mind to the subconscious so that your conscious mind can do more fun things or more exciting things or more pressing things. It's the science behind the sticky note. I love sticky notes. Sticky notes have saved, maybe not my life, but they have saved the day many a time. Let me tell you, in the time since sticky notes were invented, many arguments have been saved by a little yellow piece of paper that says milk that's on the steering wheel. Many sticky notes have said, it's your day to pick up Judah from daycare. Many, many times. Okay? We know how powerful that is. Use that to remind you to read the Bible. Here's something cool. We've developed this, the church leadership and we developed this thing, and I be honest, I was disappointed because the rest of the parts didn't come in on Amazon this week. I was going to have it for you today. Next week, you can get these. We developed these little stickers, okay? It's this little sticker that says daily, just like my shirt, okay? And on the back side of this is a tap tag, kind of like the giving thing, okay? You can take this sticker and stick it on your bathroom mirror so that when you're getting up in the morning and you're brushing your teeth, you're like, that's right, I want to read the Bible. And you can take your phone and you can go bloop, and it'll bring up the Bible app and you can just go straight to reading. Kind of cool. You can stick one on the dashboard of your car because you're like, that's right, I have a 15-minute commute. I can listen to a lot of chapters on the Bible on the way. And you can boop and do it. Okay? You can put it on your mouse pad so that before you game for 6 hours, you can, that's right, I'm going to read first. I'm going to study the Bible first. We got these little clip-on tags, so you can put this on the zipper of your purse. So when you go out to shop and you're like, that's right, I need to read the Bible today, you can clip it onto your backpack. We even found one that you can put like a necklace you can wear so that when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I'm like, oh, that's right, did I read the Bible today? Okay. We'll have those for you next week. Anything to help me remember is worth it because my life is different when I'm immersed in the Bible. Okay? So you want repetition. You want to use visual cues. Here's the last one. This is my favorite one. I saved the best for last. This is the thing that's been most helpful personally for me. And it's cool that something I was doing personally that God was just kind of encouraging me to do, I now realize He also told everybody else to do it, and it's scientifically powerful. Here's the other thing you can do. Write this down. Pair new routines with established ones. Pair new routines with established ones, because I know you're similar to me in this way. How many of you guys, hand raise, how many of you guys would say, Chris, I need one more thing to do like I need a hole in the head? I have enough to remember already. Yeah, okay? And it's stressful when the guy on the stage says, hey, if you don't read the Bible every day, Christianity will not benefit you. That's not actually what I said. But if you want to get the most out of it, you need to. How am I supposed to add one more thing? I'm already forgetting 6 things. I need more sticky notes, right? I already forget a lot of stuff. I know. Listen to what God says here. He says, recite these things when you're going to bed and getting up. Now, going to bed and getting up was already happening with everybody on a regular basis before God said, recite my truths and my commandments when you're doing these everyday things. Do you know what happens when you pair a new behavior with an existing one? You just piggyback. You're just along for the ride. You're like all of those little sucker things that you see on the side of a whale, and the whale is just swimming, and it's got all of this stuff that's just, it's like all the small businesses that sprout up around Walmart, okay? They probably wouldn't have enough business, but if you're close to Walmart and people are there already, okay, you're piggybacking off of something that's already happening. And here's what happens scientifically. Hugh Byrne, in his book Habit Swap, notice this. He said, tethering to existing routines makes any new routine more likely to stick. You're much more likely to do it if you pair it with something that you're already doing, because it transfers the memory from your conscious mind to your subconscious. What are you talking about, Chris? Okay. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that everybody has a somewhat regular routine of brushing your teeth. Okay? Mom made you brush your teeth when you were little, and you're like, did you brush your teeth? Yeah, totally. And then she checks your toothbrush, and she's like, this is bone dry. You didn't brush it. Get in there and brush your teeth. And you're like, oh. Okay. You already do these things. You're already in a rhythm. Okay? Ladies, you're already in a rhythm in the morning. When I get up, I do this, and I get this makeup, and I do this with my hair, okay? You guys all eat on a somewhat regular basis. You maybe you have a wind down time where, like, I'm going to lay down in bed and doom scroll until I can't keep my eyes open, and then I'm going to go to sleep. Okay, we already have really well established daily routines that you don't need to think hard to remember to brush your teeth. You don't need to think hard to remember to eat lunch. You eat lunch. You know what I found years ago? What made all the difference for me is that I said, okay, I'm a breakfast guy. I know not everybody is. I'm a breakfast guy. I said, you know what? I'm just going to have breakfast with the Bible. I'm just going to, every day, that's going to be my time to read the Bible. And do you know what? For years, I would be good about reading the Bible, and then I would forget. I would be good about it, and then I would forget. You know what made all the difference for me? Every day I eat breakfast. I'm not going to, and if I start to forget breakfast, this guy right here reminds me, breakfast! Okay? It's hard for me to forget breakfast. And so I paired reading the Bible with breakfast. Now, Sundays, Ethan and I eat breakfast together. The other 6 days a week is just me. And I'm just there with my fork or my spoon and the Bible. And I have been consistently reading and studying, and it's not a hardship for me because I paired it to something that I'm already doing. Some of you guys, you're already driving to work. Okay? And your ears are not super busy on the way. You can listen to the Bible on your commute into work. What a difference that would make if every day when you clock in at Paradise, you clock in having just spent time with the Lord, so that when craziness happens, you're like, I'm in a good state of mind because I've been with the Lord on the way out here. It's valuable. And God said, hey, you want this to work? Repeat it on a daily rhythm. Tie it to something you're already doing. Use visual reminders. Use the things that are around you. Leverage that stuff. Leverage your brain chemistry to help you to build those pathways. Because immersion in the Bible is not a really difficult thing that you have to give up a lot to gain. The bar is super low. And I know, because it's been me. I live just like you do in a society that says more, everything. You can always squeeze more onto your plate. And I know that when the guy on the stage says, you got to be immersed in the Bible and you got to read it every day, I know there's this natural pushback out of your exhaustion that says, I can't add one more thing. I want you to be honest with me and consider, is that reaction, is that voice, is that the voice of the Holy Spirit saying, I can't add one more thing? Or is that you? I would suggest that that pushback is not the Spirit of God in you saying, I should read the Bible and be engaged and grow spiritually, but I'm too busy. I think that's you. And I think if a consistent rhythm of 5 minutes a day would make a huge difference in your life, I think that's worth putting a little bit of effort to get the ball rolling, because there's so much to help you keep it rolling once you do. Okay, what if you tried this, and what if this fall sometime when your teenager comes to you with a crisis in their life, what if right there in the moment you have the godly wisdom to give to them because you've been soaking in it? And you can call Pastor Chris or Pastor Chad, but what if you don't have to because you're like, I know just what to say? What if you're in that moment and you're like, man, I really am struggling with this financial decision. Should I do it or should I not? And right there in the moment, you're like, I know that's not wise. That is because I've been soaking in it. What if you're in that argument with your husband, and right before you go to say that thing, you're like, wait, no, I know that that's not the way to get a resolution. I know the path to resolve this. I know God's wisdom on this. And in the moment it's there, not 5 days later when you're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. In the moment. It comes from being immersed. There's so much benefit from having those truths not out there in the cloud somewhere, but in real life, on deck and ready to deploy into your life. And that's the way God wants us to live. And that's the way we can live. And what I'm telling you today is that bar is not way up here. It's way down here. And with God's help, you can do it. You can regularly experience God through the Bible and prayer on a day-to-day basis, and it will improve your life. Okay? Let me ask you this. Okay? I'm going to put you on the spot, and then we'll wrap up. Joan, has your spiritual life improved since you made a regular pattern of reading the Bible? A little or a lot? A lot. A lot. Where's Stacy at? Stacy, before you started, Stacy's gone on like a 400 and something day Bible reading streak. Awesome. Okay? Has your spiritual life been healthier since you've made that a daily part of your rhythm, or has it been basically the same? 100% better. 100% better. Frank, does daily time in prayer and the Bible, does that ever help you to be a better grandfather to your grandkids, or you're like, no, man, it doesn't really move the needle at all? Always. Always. You are a better granddad because you spend time with the Lord, because He's building you into a better granddad. You're a better grandmother. You're a better mom. We are better humans because we spend time with the Lord, and that time doesn't have to be 6 hours a day. Now, the more is good. If you got more time to spend, do it. You want to read the whole book in a day? That's fine. But what I'm telling you is just the start is a massive, massive help to you. And I want to see us this year, I want to see us grow into that. Okay? So I encourage you, as someone who not only is your pastor, but someone who's also just a fellow traveler along the way, it has made a big difference in my life. So with God's help, take these things, take these notes, think about it, put them into practice. Next week, we'll have these stickers and tags and all the cool stuff you can take home. Put it into practice. It will change. That is how we take things out of the clouds, put them into life. This is the way that we build healthy rhythms and we grow. Hey there, just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for watching. If a friend sent you this link, it's because they believe what we talked about today is going to make a positive impact in your life. And if it did, there's probably somebody that you care about who could benefit from it. So take a minute to share this video with somebody. Post it to your timeline or send them a direct link. And if you're able, take a minute to give using the link at the bottom of the description on this video. One last thing. Maybe you feel a tug at your soul and you're ready to take the next step in your spiritual life and form a relationship with God. We've got folks here who would love to talk with you about it. So just text prayer to the number on your screen and we'll follow up with you. It's also in the description on this video in case that helps. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.